Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Gaura Haribo. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Vishnupada Paramahamsa Paribhav Jakacharya Ashto Tarasata Srimad Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Shri Prabhupada Ki Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Nitai Gaur Premanandi. All glory to the assembled devotees, all glory to the assembled devotees, all glory to the assembled devotees, all glory to Shri Guru, Shri Gauranga, Shri Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Well, today reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th Canto, Chapter 4, text number 40. Nadati kvachit ukkanto vilajo nriyate kvachit Kvachitad bhavana yuktas tanmayo nuchakaradha nadati kvachit utkanto vilajo nriyati kvachit kvachitad bhavana yuktas Tanmayanu chakaraha nadati kvachit utkanto vilajo nriyate kvachit kvachitad bhavana yuktas tanmayonu chakaraha Nadati kvachit utkanto vilajjo nriyate kvachit kvachit tad bhavana yuktas tanmayo nuchakaraha. Nadato kvachit utkanto vilajjo nriyate kvachit kvachit tad bhavana yuktas tanmayo nuchakaraha. Nadati kvachit utkanto vilajjo Katat bhavana yuktas tanmayo nuchakaraha. Vaishnavis. Nadati kvachit utkanto vilajjo nriyate kvachit kvachit tat bhavana yuktas tanmayo nuchakaraha. Nadati kvachit utkanto vilajjo nriyate kvachit kvachit bhavana yuktas tanmayo nuchakaraha. Nadati exclaims loudly, addressing the Lord, O Krishna. Kvachit, sometimes. Utkanta, being anxious. Vilaja, without shame. Nriyati, he dances. Kvachit, sometimes. Kvachit, sometimes. Tat bhavana, with thoughts of Krishna. Yukta, being absorbed. Tat maya, thinking as if he had become Krishna. Anuchakara, imitated. Indeed. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Sometimes, upon seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Prahlada Maharaj would loudly call in full anxiety. He sometimes lost his shyness in jubilation and began dancing in ecstasy. And sometimes, being fully absorbed in thoughts of Krishna, he felt oneness and imitated the pastimes of the Lord. Everyone can please repeat. Sometimes, upon seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Prahlada Maharaj would loudly call in full anxiety. He sometimes lost his shyness in jubilation and began dancing in ecstasy. And sometimes, being fully absorbed in thoughts of Krishna, he felt oneness and imitated the pastimes of the Lord. Purport. Prahlada Maharaj sometimes felt that the Lord was far away from him, and therefore he called loudly. When he saw that the Lord was before him, he was fully jubilant. Sometimes, thinking himself one with the Supreme, he imitated the Lord's pastimes. And in separation from the Lord, he would sometimes show symptoms of madness. These feelings of a devotee would not be appreciated by the impersonalists. One must go further and further into spiritual understanding. The first realization is impersonal Brahman. But one must go still further to realize Paramatma and eventually the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is worshipped by the transcendental feelings of a devotee in a relationship of Shanta, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, or Madhurya. Here the feelings of Prahlada Maharaj were in the mellow of Vatsalya. filial love and affection. As a child cries when left by his mother, when Prahlada Maharaj felt that the Lord was away from him, he began to cry, nadati. Again, a devotee like Prahlad sometimes sees that the Lord is coming from a long distance to pacify him, like a mother responding to a child, saying, "My dear child, do not cry, I am coming." Then the devotee, without being ashamed due to his surroundings and circumstances, begins to dance, thinking, "Here's my Lord is coming." Thus the devotee, in full ecstasy, sometimes imitates the pastimes of the Lord, just as the cowherd boys used to imitate the behavior of the jungle animals. However, he does not actually become the Lord. Prahlada Maharaj achieved the spiritual ecstasies described herein by his advancement in spiritual understanding. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshuru Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Dashatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, reflecting back a little bit, here we see Prahlada Maharaj. This is just an extension of the previous verse, sometimes expressing jubilation, sometimes singing loudly, sometimes crying, sometimes laughing. These things all happen in Krishna consciousness. Of course, they also happen to us. We sometimes cry, we sometimes laugh, we sometimes feel jubilation, we sometimes feel anxiety, but all of them cause misery. They all end up in misery. Whether you're happy materially or sad materially, it always ends up in misery. And in spiritual platform, everything causes ecstasy. There was one famous Greek poem, "The Agony and the Ecstasy." So that's the material world. But that reflection is a reflection of the spiritual world. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that without the opposite effect, the effect is negated. So to increase one's sambhoga, there is vipalamba. To increase one's coming together with Krishna, there is separation from Krishna. But both produce ecstasy. That's the difference. We have sambhoga, but both produce agony. Just like sometimes I see in the airport, you see people grading their family members and their hair standing on end, tears coming from the eyes. But then a few hours later, they'll be arguing, why did you quit school? Why did you do this? Why are you so cruel to me? Why don't you give me more money? And so it's not maintained. The ecstasy is not there. So everything is centered on one's own feelings. Even the closest thing, Srila Prabhupada said, the closest thing to Pure love is the love of a mother for the child. But even sometimes the mother becomes frustrated with the child in the material world. Although generally speaking, the protective tendency, but it's all coming from the feeling that this child is part of my body, not that we are all part of Krishna or that I am part of Krishna. So these symptoms being felt by Prahlada Maharaj, as we will see, of course, later on, a few chapters, when Prahlada Maharaj is being tortured, he doesn't change. Whether he's being tortured or whether he's feeling this ecstasy right now, just naturally. It's described in previous verses, he was one of 4 sons. And they were all wonderful. But he was especially wonderful because he was a devotee. The other sons were neutral. They were demons, but they were, not such bad demons as Hiranyakashipu. He's a very advanced demon. So Prahlada Maharaj, it describes in the beginning, a few verses back, that he didn't like to play like other children. Of course, we see that in the subsequent chapters, where all of his friends are playing, and he tells them, "No, you're wasting your time. From 5 years old, you should be cultivating Krishna consciousness." He was cultivating Krishna consciousness even before he was born. And that's such an elevated devotee. And we see the difference between a devotee and the demigods, who are Sakama Bhaktas. They were in anxiety because this chapter is titled Hiranyakashipu terrorizes the universe. So because he was terrorizing the universe, the demigods were in anxiety, and they approached the Lord like we approach the Lord. A conditioned soul approaches the Lord to relieve their anxiety or to get some benefit. This is explained by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. 4 reasons. One, you're in anxiety, you want to relieve the misery of this material world. Another one, you want to get something. So these are the 2 most common ones. Approaching Krishna out of curiosity or trying to understand the absolute truth is not so common in Kali Yuga. Maybe in previous yugas, but not in Kali Yuga. Most everyone comes to Krishna out of anxiety. That's the main one. And then, as you advance a little bit, you may want to, get something from Krishna. And then as you advance a little more, you may want to understand better. And then you may want to understand the absolute truth. But to love Krishna, that is different. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada says in his purport, therefore, these verses are a dilemma for the impersonalists. They can't understand this. Therefore, as Srila Prabhupada and other acharyas have said, therefore the Mayavadis, they don't comment very much on Srimad Bhagavatam. They comment on certain verses which they can misconstrue to support their understanding. Of course, we also do the opposite. But we don't misconstrue it. We explain that Avruya Kritrena Param Tata, that even though one does great austerities and penances, if you don't have the shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna, then you will fall back into material existence. Of course, Jiva Goswami mentions that most jivas, this is a little different from Bhaktivinoda Thakur and from Srila Prabhupada. It says most jivas enter into Brahman and they don't want to leave, because the material world is so miserable that when they get this position of Brahman, meaning there's no more material anxiety, they're in the neutral position. They're experiencing some small degree of bliss, because there is no, even in Brahman, there's some bliss, but it's minimal. It's just the bliss of being one with the Lord. But there is some bliss there, but minimal bliss. A living entity in relation to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then for the impersonalist, the most important thing is Sat, that I feel eternal, I feel my eternality. Just like we read one verse, where was that? Maybe it was here, in this, in Radhakunja Vihari temple. Anyway, it said that, I can't, we were reading the other day, I can't remember where it was, but it says that one actually understands that one is eternal, in Krishna consciousness. It's not just an understanding, it's really experiencing that there is no more birth and death. So that's why sometimes the living entity doesn't want to leave the Brahman. And that's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he speaks about the Bhakti Lata, it must penetrate the Brahman and go beyond it. Because you can get stuck there if you're not careful. If you're not hearing about Krishna carefully, and you're just doing austerities in devotional service, and we do austerity, but it should be a product of bhakti. That it should not be Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Priyojita Janayat Yasyu Vairagyam. The Vairagya should be a product of bhakti. Not that bhakti is a product of vairagya. When you try to do austerities and cultivate knowledge to get bhakti, then you can end up getting stuck in the Brahman. Because you're cultivating bhakti through a mechanical process. You're not receiving it from the parampara. It's not transforming your heart. So the heart is subject to cultivation of knowledge and renunciation. So, but the demigods, they were in anxiety. Prahlada Maharaj was never in anxiety. He was being tortured. I mean, when we read about those tortures, how many of us could, be put in a pot of boiling oil and survive? Of course, most physical bodies wouldn't be able to stand that. You'd just die. But, being pierced with spears and, all these horrible things, stepped on by an elephant, and thrown off of a cliff. Of course, Prahlada Maharaj, because of his devotion, Krishna helped him. Just like Haridas Thakur, when he was being tortured and he was being whipped, and then those persons who were torturing him said, "Would you please die? Otherwise they'll kill me." And he said, Haridas Thakur, I don't want that to happen. I'll die. I don't want you to suffer. No. And so then in the Mahapraharana Lila, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he spoke to Haridas, he said that actually when I saw this happening, I was coming with my Sudarshan chakra to kill these miscreants. But then when I saw your mercy toward them, instead I stood in front of you, and as they were whipping, I took the pain. And then Mahaprabhu showed him his back, and he had marks on his back. Of course, it's transcendental. His body is transcendental, but he's showing that he accepts the difficulties of his devotees. Of course, immediately we may say, "What about me?" No. When I suffer, I feel it. No. But that's because you need to feel it in order to advance spiritually. And therefore Krishna gives it to you. If you don't need to feel it, then Krishna may take it away. If it would be humanly impossible, just like all the tortures that Prahlada Maharaj goes through are humanly impossible. So therefore the Lord takes away the part that this physical body could not tolerate. So this is the difference between sakama and niskama bhaktas. That the niskama bhakta will everything that the Lord does, because they have this mahabhagavata vision, which is Prahlada Maharaj has described in the previous verses as a mahabhagavata. So mahabhagavata always sees Krishna, just like in one verse, one previous verse. It says, he did not know how his bodily necessities, such as sitting, walking, eating, lying down, drinking, and talking, were being automatically performed. He didn't see the world around him. There was one very young, enthusiastic, new devotee in San Diego, in the U.S., and he was underage. He was like 16 years old. But he got permission from his parents. Reluctantly, they gave permission because he was coming to the temple. But then he started failing in his studies. So the parents came, complaining, and the devotees in the temple said, you have to study. But he was so absorbed. He just was feeling so much happiness. And that he just couldn't study anymore. He only wanted to study Prabhupada's books. He was studying, but not the academic materials. So the parents came again. Devotees said, well, why don't you just tolerate a little bit, he'll get over it. It's like this new fascination. So they waited, but he became more and more absorbed. He didn't want to, pay much attention to these things. So his parents, finally, they just came and took him. And his father took him to an insane asylum, and committed him. Said, he's been brainwashed, I don't know what's wrong with him. He won't study, he acts strangely. And so they put him in the same. Then that afternoon, the doctor came to, analyze him. So he has his little booklet. So, do you see things that are not actually there? He said, by your analysis, yes. Okay. Do you hear things that are not actually, produced by the environment around you? Yes. Okay. So then the doctor said, there was a flower on the table. He said, now this flower, what do you see? And so the boy said, well, most people would see a pretty flower with nice fragrance. And you don't see that? I also see that, but I see something beyond that. I see something so beautiful, so perfectly constructed, with such a nice fragrance. It could not happen by chance. There must be a superior intelligence behind it. And he began preaching like that. And the Sayakrai said, where did you get this information? Oh, Bhagavad Gita. He pulled out his Bhagavad Gita, showed him some verses. The doctor was amazed, and they were speaking like for an hour. And the nurse came in and said, doctor, there's patients waiting. And so doctor came out, called the father, said, okay, your boy he's all right. No problem. Amazing, you're amazing that you work so quickly, And so the father came, and the boy was there chanting, And so the father said, well, I thought you cured him. He said, he's the sanest person I've ever met. And so then the father started hyperventilating. Oh, you can't. And he started yelling, and they committed him. The boy went home. So this is the thing. Prahlada saw things differently. A devotee sees things differently. They don't see the material energy. They see Krishna. Of course, this is not, we may not see that because we're still conditioned by the modes of nature. But even in the basic, of course, Bhagavad Gita is considered to be basic Shastra. For us, it may be very advanced. We may spend this whole lifetime trying to understand, to some degree, Bhagavad Gita. So there in the 6th chapter, it says, that Krishna, mam cha pashyati sarvatra, that one who sees everything who sees in me everything and everything in me, and then nasya tasyaham na pranashyami, that person will never be lost, and sa cha me na pranashyati, that I will never, otherwise that person will never be separated from me, and I will never be separated from them. No. And a devotee has that faith. So we read that verse. Now sometimes, unfortunately, devotees read something like that or describing Mahabhagavata, and they think, oh yeah, that's me. I see Krishna everywhere. Yeah, no. And so, because we artificially, we can understand it intellectually, but we don't see things that way. Sometimes I see my mother, or sometimes I see a tree. But a Mahabhagavat will just see Krishna. They'll only see Krishna. That's all they can see. And therefore, Prabodhananda Saraswati says, Vishvam Purna Sukhayate, that I see everything, happiness everywhere. I see everything is perfect. And we don't see that way. We see, war in Ukraine, Gaza Strip, China is becoming too militarized, U.S. is exploiting everybody. We see all these things. But a Mahabhagavata, of course, one may say, what about Prabhupada? He saw many things. No, that's because Prabhupada had to come to the Madhyam platform and make distinctions. But within himself, as Srila Prabhupada demonstrated by his own compassion, he could only see that there is Krishna's mercy. Just like we're speaking about Prahlada Maharaj. So Prahlada Maharaj, he said the same thing. He said that even though these people, naitam vihaya kripana vimamuksha eko, that even though these people around me are kripanas, but nanyad tadasyasya sharanam nupasya, that without your shelter, I don't see any way that they can get out of this condition. This is the vision of a Mahabhagavat. That he was saying, other people, they great sages, they meditate in the forest, they wander around alone, but na paranishta. They don't feel compassion for others. They're thinking about themselves. I can't do that, Prahlada Maharaj said. I can't do that. Because without your mercy, how will they survive? Even though they're miserable. I can understand they're miserable, but only your mercy, and therefore I can only give them your mercy. I cannot leave this material world, just like Vasudev Datta. He said, my Lord, people are suffering so much. Please let me take all of their reaction. I couldn't imagine. Like we may, just like in Gita Mahatmya, there's a story of that people see this bull suffering who had previously committed sinful activities. He's suffering, and then different persons start to offer their pious activities to help him. They're willing to give up a few pious activities, but how many people are willing to take on the sins of every living entity in the material world? Can you imagine how many births you would have to take? Like we couldn't even imagine that number. It would be like longer than from here to, according to scientists, from here to a star 300 light years, 3 million light years away. You know, that's how big a number, how many births you would have to take. You know, but he was willing to do it. And it wasn't like a show. Like sometimes we say things like that, but we're just saying it because we saw somewhere in the Bhagavatam, some mahabhagavata said that. Yeah, seems like a nice thing to say. That also happened with Srila Prabhupada. No, one devotee said, Srila Prabhupada, I am the most fallen. And Prabhupada said, you are not the most anything. No. Even to be the most fallen is a very elevated position. No. You are not the most anything. No. You are just be a surrendered devotee, that's all. No. And don't be the most surrendered. No. Even though you may be the most surrendered. We see the Mahabhagavata never thinks they're the most. They may say, I am the most fallen, because they actually feel that way. They're not just saying it. They feel that way. We may be fallen, and we may feel like I'm the most fallen. No, because we are fallen. But a Mahabhagavata is exalted, and they feel fallen. They're so surrendered to Krishna. So, this condition, which is being described here, this is Vyabhichari Bhava, no, madness. It's madness. So in the Bhagavatam, a famous verse, which Ishvara Puri declared to be the essence of the Srimad Bhagavatam. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was speaking to Prakashananda Saraswati and the Mayavad sannyasis, he was, they were saying, Swami, please come sit with us. Oh, I'm not so qualified. No, you're a Bharati sannyasin. You're almost as good as us. We're Saraswatis, but we can accept you. You're okay. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he showed his effulgence, and they thought, Narayan. He made it. He made it. He made the grade. He's become Narayan. It gives us some hope. We can also become Narayan. That's what they were thinking in the beginning. And why are you dancing with these fanatics? That means us. These fanatics. And we're happy to be fanatical about Krishna. We're very happy. Srila Prabhupada said, you can be very fanatical in your own devotional service. Otherwise, strict sadhana bhakti, we can be very fanatical. But with others, be very tolerant. Generally, we do the opposite. We're very fanatical with others and very tolerant with ourselves. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they said, why don't you study Vedanta? And he said, no, nahika Vedantadikar. That no, my spiritual master told me I am not qualified to study Vedanta. He told me to chant the holy name. Krishna Nama Japa Sada, a mantra sar. This mantra is the essence of all mantras. You must chant it. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, and when my spiritual master gave me this Maha Mantra, I became very confused. I was Nimai Pandit. Previously, I was Nimai Pandit. I had all this knowledge, everything. I had everything figured out, just like we see scientists and philosophers. Srila Prabhupada said these are Maya Bhaktas. They are Shuddha Bhaktas of Maya, the philosophers and the scientists. And because they're very convinced that they know they've got it all figured out. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was showing that they don't. I thought I had everything. I could understand everything by logic. Just like in Mahabharata it says, Tarko Pratishta, that you can't, by logic, you can't understand things. Even Shutayo Bibinam, even from Shastra. Like sometimes devotees, they study a little Sanskrit and they become, think, now I know, I know Sanskrit grammar, I've got it all figured out. And no, according to No. Nashavishu yasya matam nabinam. And someone may become a sage or a rishi, and they think, oh yes, I'm very austere, practicing yoga, meditation. No. According to Mahabharata, if you want to know the truth, mahajani nikata sapanta. The only way is to take shelter of the Mahajan. No. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I came to my spiritual master, I complained. What kind of mantra have you given me? No. I'm losing my composure. Sometimes I start crying and ecstasy, I fall down and I don't know what to do. What kind of mantra have you? And Ishvara Puri smiled. He said, you were very fortunate. No. He indicated that most people, it takes a long time to come to this stage. You just started chanting and it happened to you automatically. You're very fortunate. So therefore, you should continue this chanting. It will be very, very beneficial for you. And also it will be very, very beneficial for everyone. No. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then he said, and my spiritual master described all the different types of ecstasy. And I was feeling these things. So I became very happy that this is authorized. No. Otherwise, if the spiritual master does not authorize it, it should not be done. So he was wondering, why am I, falling on the ground, crying, and why all these things happen? No, this is what you're, okay, it's authorized. No, I can do it, no problem. No. Just like, first time I was in Mayapur, Srila Prabhupada came in from his morning walk, and there was one man, he was going like this, and then he fell down on the ground before the deities, and Prabhupada looked at him, took his cane and went like this, and then a couple of devotees just grabbed him and took him out of the temple, and Prabhupada smiled, So it wasn't authorized. No. So then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, then my spiritual master spoke one verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, and he told me this is the essence of the whole Srimad Bhagavatam. Evam Brata Swapriya Nama Krishna. That this, you should make the holy name of Krishna the most dear thing to you, or you should make Krishna the most dear thing to you. Jata anurago druta chitta uchchai. And then jata anuraga, you will feel spiritual ecstasy. You will be situated on the platform of prema bhakti, druta chitta uchchai, and your heart will melt. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains, the heart melting. That means that the fire of anxiety, of separation from Krishna, which is being described here in this verse, that fire of ecstasy is so great that the heart actually becomes totally conquered by the influence and by the potency of the holy name. And then what happens? Hasat, one begins to smile. Satyato roditi rauti gayat. Then one begins to smile and feeling great ecstasy, chanting loudly, feeling anxiety, the anxiety of separation from Krishna. And sat yunmada ban nriyati loka bahya. That one becomes totally indifferent to feeling such great ecstasy, madness in ecstasy, chanting the holy name. One begins to dance without caring for others. This is said here. Bilaja. Bilaja. Laja means lazy. And bilaja means that when you're lazy, you don't care for anything, right? Lazy people, they could care less, about anything. So vilaja means you become totally indifferent, indifferent to everything. In the previous verse to that verse we just said, it says the same thing. Shrin gayan vilajo vichayat, that asangaha. One becomes totally indifferent because one is chanting the holy name of Krishna. When one is chanting the holy name of Krishna, it says, Shrinvan Subhadrani Ratangapanir, that when one begins to glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the most auspicious activity that one can do, Ratangapani, which means Krishna holding the chariot wheel in his hand. Why that name of Krishna? Because that name of Krishna means for the devotee, Krishna will do anything. For this kind of devotee who is totally absorbed in the holy name, Krishna will do anything. Krishna is willing to do anything for that devotee. And that devotee, Janmani Karmani Chayani Loke. That devotee is always absorbed in as Janma Karma Chame Divyam, in the transcendental birth and activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then Namani, Gitani Namani, Tad Artakani. And when one is always singing the names of Krishna that describe these transcendental activities, one becomes absorbed, totally absorbed in Krishna. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, when he speaks about in his explanation of that particular verse, he says, Shravanam Kirtanam Swat which means when you chant and you hear in a super excellent state of mind, then super excellent. Otherwise, I'm not chanting like sometimes we see devotees walking and they're chanting and they're talking and they're chanting a little bit, talking. I was noticing when I was in Vrindavan a few days ago, everybody walking around with a japa bag in their hand. So I started telling them, please take your japa bag, put it here, finish your conversation, then you can chant. I stopped like 50 people, because they're all walking around, circumambulating the temple and like talking to one another with I said, Prabhu, please take your japa, just let it, put it aside, finish your conversation, then you should chant. Don't be like walking around, chanting, chant half of a mantra, and then I start talking to someone. But there should be, when there's super excellence, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, how do we get that super excellence? One devotee asked me the other day when we did a program, and what's the name of that place? It was like, yeah. We did he said, how can I develop humility? Because I said, Trinada Pisunich. I said, then find the person who you like the least and serve them. And that will develop humility. Whoever you don't like, whatever devotee in the temple that you think is annoying, I don't like the way they speak, I don't like the way then go serve that devotee. Then you'll develop some humility. Just like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, one devotee asked him, can I take sannyas? He said, yes, you can do that, but first you have to do some humble service. So he went to the kitchen and he told the cook, so Guru Maharaj said I must do humble service, so I would like to serve prasadam. And the cook said, what? Serving prasadam? That is very elevated. No, you come and clean the pots. No, that is humble service. Serving prasadam, you serve all the Vaishnavas. Very elevated. Even Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, although he didn't like so much speaking to the general public. He wasn't so inclined to that. Because he was so brilliant, he wanted to preach to people like Prabhupada. He wanted to preach to, poets, philosopher, scientist. He didn't just want to go and preach to somebody on the street. Because that's not pride. That is using what Krishna has given you. Krishna gives a devotee this great intelligence. Someone like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who could never forget anything. And so why would he be speaking to somebody on the street, who says, what is this mark on your nose? Somebody else can do that. And so, but when the devotees were serving prasadam, he would come and serve prasadam to the general people. So, just showing us also that we should try to understand what Krishna wants us to do. Of course, we're willing to do anything. A devotee is willing to do any service, but we want to do that service that Krishna wants us to do, has equipped us to do. And then we'll be happy in Krishna consciousness. But sometimes we have to do something that we're not, maybe that's called emergency. Srila Prabhupada says there's different types of duties. One is emergency, but one should not always be in the emergency mode. Like, of course, sometimes that also happens. Because Krishna consciousness is so powerful, it expands so quickly. Sometimes we can't get out of the emergency mode because things are happening so quickly. But generally speaking, for most devotees, after some time we find, or the devotees will help us find, that service which is pleasing and that I can do it very enthusiastically. But still we should always be enthusiastic in our devotional service. So, just the last point I wanted to make here. Srila Prabhupada gives the example, and he gives it in another, in the previous purport also. He said, sometimes a pure devotee is just like a child. A child just sees everything in terms of playing. They're playing. So sometimes a devotee is like a child. Sometimes they're acting like Krishna. It says here, becoming Krishna. It says in the purport, thinking as if he had become Krishna. That means that there's just like the gopis. The gopis were so absorbed in Krishna, after Krishna left for Mathura, they said, let's forget about Krishna. Yes, why should we think about when Krishna, when there was a big forest fire, and then they began to speak about Krishna's pastimes of swallowing the forest fire. And then, yes, let's forget about Krishna playing his flute and calling us in the middle. And then one gopi just started acting as if she was playing the flute, and all the other gopis became absorbed in Krishna. So that's what it means. Not that he became Krishna, but he was thinking of Krishna so much that he began to act like Krishna. Just like even it's recommended in Shastra that this Jiva Goswami recommends this, that sometimes one devotee should be dressed as Krishna and another devotee should be dressed as Radha, and everyone can come and serve them. And you can serve them like this, you can do that service for them. So that devotee and those devotees, they're acting like Radha and Krishna. And they're accepting your service like Radha and Krishna. Of course, a devotee that does that should be able to understand, I haven't become Radha and Krishna. But, so this is just the way we perform devotional service. We have plays all the time. Somebody becomes Hiranyakashipu, terrorizing the universe, and someone becomes Nrsimhadev. He doesn't think I'm Nrsimhadev. He has to have like a cardboard head or something, like fake nails. And then a few minutes later, he's back to normal. But this ecstasy is so great. This just shows the power of the ecstasy of devotional service. And there's many other things we could mention about this, but I'll stop here. And any comments or questions? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj. Maharaj, at the last part, sorry, I could not understand. You mentioned, Jiva Goswami mentions about that, that this somebody could be dressed as Radha Krishna, and what you are explaining, I could not properly understand that. In the last few minutes before.
So I'm sorry I didn't understand that.
And you were saying about dressing someone as Radha and Krishna. Is it
Oh.
wrong or not?
Oh yes, yeah, that's recommended. I mean, it's just I can't remember. I have to.
Drama is said.
Yes.
But drama is said.
Yes.
But other than drama, can somebody make some human beings into Radha Krishna worship?
Yeah, we worship. Otherwise, two devotees, they may take that position, and we worship them, because it's.
Where they do that?
Hmm?
Where they do like that, making a man and woman into Radha Krishna worship?
Yeah, but it's actually recommended that devotees do that. No.
Is it not?
Huh?
In ISKCON they do that? In ISKCON they do that?
I have to look it up. I just remember. I remember reading it. No, I can't remember the circumstance. So, but so they're acting as Radha and Krishna, and they have to think like Radha and Krishna. They have to think. Even when somebody's doing a play, you have to think like I'm Krishna. No, but you're remembering Krishna's pastimes to think that like I'm like Krishna, and somebody else is thinking some. Of course, nowadays we do it. Previously, they would never have ladies in a play. And previously, now that we do that, you usually get a young boy who looks, doesn't have a beard or something. So, Radha with a beard would be a little strange. But so the point is that they have to think like that. Just like actors. I studied theater in school and when I'm in university, and we did Shakespeare plays, and you have to, if you really want to do it well, you have to get into the mood of that person, that personality. So if you're playing Krishna, you have to think I'm Krishna, but you don't continue after the play's over. Then you remember I'm Krishna Das. That's our disease, that we're all thinking I'm Krishna. And everything is for my pleasure. Everything that's happening in life is only to please me. That's the disease of the material world. But we can be Krishna for 30 minutes, something like that. Then you go back, Punarmushika Bhava. I'm actually praying for that I stop being the GBC chairman and Punarmushika Bhava. Just be a simple, aspiring devotee. Hare Krishna. Yes, back.
Maharaj, this Kartik, when we were in Vrindavan, Dinbandhu Prabhu took us for visiting different holy places. So he mentioned this as a practice that Brajvasis follows. It's one of the ways of doing deity worship. He was explaining on Gopashtami in Nandgaon. The Brajvasis, they select a boy and a girl and they dress them as Radha Krishna and then serve them. They offer bhoga to them, and after they honor, they take that as Mahaprasad. And Dinbandhu Prabhu was explaining that this is one of the, just like you have deities made of brass, clay, stone, then this is the deity in the form of a person. He didn't provide any scriptural reference, but he mentioned that this is one of the methods of deity worship in support of what you quoted Jiva Goswami over here.
Sorry, I didn't. Just that sometimes my hearing problem, the amplification is.
He is saying when he went to Vrindavan, Dinabandhu Prabhu told them that Brajavasis, they sometimes take a boy and girl and decorate them like Radha and Krishna, and offer them bhoga. And I have read in one of my glorious master, Prabhupada criticized it. Prabhupada did not accept making a boy and a girl into Radha and Krishna and offering bhoga and things like that.
Yes, it's a certain day you're supposed to do that. I can't remember, but I just remember reading about it. There's one Mataji back.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for the wonderful class. Yesterday's class, both in the morning and the evening, in the afternoon also very wonderful. It gave us a little more boost, more motivation and inspiration for doing book distribution. Maharaj, regarding today's class, you mentioned that chant and hear in a super excellence way, and that's real japa. And how do we get that super excellence way? I was not able to, I just missed that point. You could just help me that how can I chant in a super excellence way?
First, we remember that Srila Prabhupada said it's a gradual process. And therefore, as Rupa Goswami says, Utsahan Nishchaya Dhairyat, that we must have enthusiasm to advance and we must have dhaira to permit that the anarthas that are within the heart, it takes some time for them to go out. Sometimes we have enthusiasm to advance, but we don't have sufficient patience. So both those things have to be there. And both of them with full faith. Otherwise, enthusiasm, just like we see so many people enthusiastic to make money, enthusiastic to, So the enthusiasm has to be coupled with proper faith, that I am enthusiastic to do the right thing for Krishna. And therefore, I accept I was just reading the other day, it said that one should be one should respect all superiors, meaning the Guru, the Vaishnavas, and older godbrothers, as worshipable deities. So with that, the more respect we can have for those who are more advanced than us, the more quickly that we can come to that stage of chanting and hearing with quality. And, every day, some Radhesham Prabhu or whoever reads something about chanting the holy name. So if we hear that enthusiastically, every day, then our chanting will improve. And if we if we hear, just like hearing is so wonderful when we can hear in the association of devotees. Because when we just read a book, we're also hearing, but we may see what Srila Prabhupada is teaching us in terms of our own desires or our own understanding. We may not capture. So when we're in the association of Vaishnavas, and sometimes devotees think that, that devotee, he's not so, accomplished. Why should I go to the class? I'll just read Bhagavatam. No, it doesn't matter who it is. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he was absorbed in Jagannath Puri, he was absorbed in total ecstasy with Swarup Damodar and with Ramananda Roy, just hearing about Radha and Krishna. Then all of a sudden he started, he asked, let us speak about Dhruva Maharaj. Just to show us that it's not that, we artificially come to some platform, but we should be willing to, any part of Krishna consciousness, we should be willing to accept that part of Krishna consciousness that, otherwise someone who's giving the class may not be as advanced as another devotee, but we should accept that what they're speaking. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was absorbed in Radha and Krishna and he was hearing about Dhruva Maharaj. So, gives us that example. Srila Prabhupada would sometimes have the devotees read Bhagavad Gita, which he himself wrote. And he would, Shrutakirti Prabhu was telling me the other day that, he was with Prabhupada one time and they were reading, Prabhupada told him to read one verse from Bhagavad Gita, and he said, read it again. And he read it again. He said, read it again. He said it 3 times. And this is Bhagavad Gita, it's not like Krishna book or, 10th canto. And then Prabhupada said, so wonderful what Krishna is saying. And Prabhupada was the one who wrote it. And then Prabhupada told him, he said, Krishna is telling me. So sometimes Prabhupada would have to say those things so we could understand who he was. But he's just relishing the nectar of Bhagavad Gita, even though it's something that he translated and he wrote. Of course, Prabhupada didn't translate all the verses of Bhagavad Gita. He had some other devotees do it for him. And he even took from Radha Krishna, not Radha Krishna, the scholar. He took some of his translations in the beginning because he wanted to work on the purports, and he didn't want to take the time to meticulously translate each verse. So the point is that's how we develop quality, in our hearing and chanting, by association more than anything else.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Krishna.
Thank you so much for that elaborate answer.
So this will be the last question. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Koti Koti Dandavat Pranam. Thank you for your wonderful class. Maharaj, you said that we should be willing to do any kind of service for the pleasure of their lordship. So my question is that how to put our hearts in menial services without bringing our false ego in between?
Not loud enough.
Yeah.
Not loud.
Can someone relate that? I didn't catch that. You got good ears. I have bad ears.
That one should be ready to do any service for the Lord's pleasure. For Lord's pleasure, one should be ready to perform any service. How to do any service without profit, without bringing in profit. Menial services we may not be ready.
Well, then we find out from someone who does it properly how to do it. Otherwise, if we're requested to do something that we don't know how to do, just like when I was, before I was even initiated, I had to worship the deity because the pujari got sick and there was only one pujari. And so I just went on the altar. I didn't know what to do. I just found some clothes and put them on the deity and, bathed the deity. I just took some water. I didn't know any mantras. I had to do it. And then I had to inquire, and I did it the best I could, but I wasn't even initiated because there was nobody to do it. I had to call somebody on the telephone in another temple and say, how do you worship the deity anyway? And they told me some mantras which I couldn't understand. I just said them the best I could. And somehow or another I survived. Here I am, so. It was an emergency. But what we should try, if we're not familiar with that service, we should accept it as Krishna's mercy that now I'm supposed to learn how to do this service. And also service to the deity, even though our inclination may not be to be a pujari, we should all, Prabhupada said, well, anyone with second initiation should know how to preach, how to do kirtan, how to play the musical instruments, how to cook, and how to worship the deity. This is like basic. Everyone should know who has second initiation. These are just, even though you may not be a pujari, you may not be a kirtaniya, or you may not be a cook, you should know how to do these. At least you can cook something for the deity. You can cook, because most people live at home and they have deities. You have to know how to cook for the deity. Not just give the deity what I want. Even if you have a healthy diet, before you can prepare what you want, but then you take some of that and fix it nicely with ghee and spices and give it to the deity. Don't give the deity like some raw carrots and, some strange Karela juice, just because I need it for my health, So you fix it nicely, and then you take the remnant, So that's how we do it.
Okay, thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, thank you. And thank you all very much for your kind attention. All glory to Shri Guru Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Jai Gaur Premanandi.
Hare Krishna, His Holiness Guru Prasad Swami Maharaj is giving Srimad Bhagavatam class tomorrow also again. So all of you come, and also please inform other devotees who may not be aware. Please bring them also. Yeah, you also should be coming along with them. Maharaj is saying.